When you talk about not being, being anti-establishment or being willing to challenge the establishment and the status quo, and then when you say, when you write an op-ed for Nancy Pelosi, Ro, it's like um, people are lost because we view Nancy Pelosi as part of the problem. Frankly, she's against single payer. She says we will not introduce it. Um, how do you make those two positions? I'm anti-establishment. I'm against the status quo. I'm willing to break it if need be, if I think it can make fundamental change. And then you have to kind of align yourself with like Nancy Pelosi. How does that work?
That's great. I'm going to answer your question completely. I'm not ducking it. I wanted to make one more point, if I could, about Obama. The one difference is, the president, who I have great respect for President Obama, but he was
Mm-hmm.
the president of Harvard Law Review. At law school, I led a protest against my law journal because there weren't enough minorities and women on there. So I'm a
Mm.
little bit more of a shake up the system type of personality. But on Nancy Pelosi, look, I'm the only sitting Democrat, and I've gotten a ton of heat for this, saying that we ought to encourage challenges to the system, that we ought to encourage primary challenges, that we ought to be willing to endorse against that. I've come out for a single payer system. I've come
Mm.
out for a financial transaction tax. There are parts. What I've said is, look, we have to look at every race in its context. There are things that look, Nancy Pelosi. I don't agree with her in not supporting single payer and other things, but there are things that we have to look at in context. She ran in 1986 as talking about bringing HIV funding, and back then no one was talking about funding HIV when she ran. She talked about nuclear nonproliferation. She was opposed to the war in Iraq. She stopped and fought against privatization on George Bush and Social Security when many other Democrats wanted to compromise. I get that the ACA wasn't perfect, but frankly, she fought Rahm Emanuel. The president may not have even fought for universal health care if it weren't for Nancy Pelosi. She's pushed for some concept of a child allowance. So my view is one of humility. Look, Nancy Pelosi is not nearly as progressive as I am. She's not in the on certain issues of healthcare and other things, and she's not clear on some of these directions. But she's accomplished a lot. I'm just starting out my career, and I think it's a reasonable position to say I respect those accomplishments. I don't think the litmus test should be who are you going to endorse in every single race. I think I've gone pretty far out in saying I'm open to challenges, and I
Hmm.
support these challenges.
I mean, you know what? Well, thank you for answering the question. Like, I know it's not easy. You knew you're a freshman, and here we go. We want you to go to go up against people who have figureheads, and arguably Nancy Pelosi is iconic, and well respected by many Democrats. So I know that's a tough place to be, but. It's like, what have you done for us lately, Nancy? It's been like, 30 years ago. But I get it. Like I said, I don't want to put you on the spot there.
Well, no, it's a fair question, and I think I think what people will see for me is I think they'll come to see I'm a straight shooter, and I admit where I'm not perfect. And look, if folks are looking for ideological total purity in ways, I get that they could be disappointed with that decision. But I have been pretty consistent. I've said I support our party having a bolder vision. I support us moving towards that direction. But in the case of Pelosi, in that particular race, I respect her service a tremendous amount, and that's why I made that decision. That said, I hope they'll judge me in the context of how much I stuck my neck out on just arguing that we should have primary challenges.
I get it. I totally get it. If now Tulsi Gabbard, we got to people. I got a question here about Tulsi Gabbard.
I just saw her today. Yeah.
You against? Oh, you did. Great, great. You against interventionist wars. I don't know why you two aren't more aligned. Um,
I admired a lot about Tulsi. I mean,
yeah.
she served our country. She supported Bernie, and she's brave. We have a great relationship.
Okay. Okay.
But look, what I have said is I disagreed with her position on Assad. And this is here's the point. I have said I'm opposed to intervention in Syria,
Hmm.
partly because when we have intervened, we've often made matters worse. We overthrew Mossadegh. That was not didn't lead to a good outcome in Iran. With our intervention in Congo with Patrice Lumumba wasn't a success. And we supported Iraq in the war in Iran, and Iraq used chemical weapons back in the 1980s, and we turned a blind eye. We supported the Mujahideen in Afghanistan that led to the Taliban. So my view comes from a sense that American intervention has often made matters worse, hasn't protected our ideals. And it goes back to John Quincy Adams, who said, we shouldn't slay monsters. We should give our voice and our prayers to people who like peace across the world. But if we intervene, sometimes we'll be seen as a dictator and not a liberator, because we can't often pick who the true voices of freedom are. And so it comes from a restraint in foreign policy. That said, I believe that Assad has committed a lot of moral crimes. He's expelled millions of Sunnis from Syria. His father, with the Hama massacre, killed 10,000 people in cold blood. I don't think Assad is a moral actor. Now, I said I disagreed with Tulsi's trip in meeting Assad. But here's the point with the progressive community. Why can't you have intellectual dissent in terms of maybe Tulsi can have her view, I can have my view. I have a lot of respect for her. I have my position on why I think intervention is wrong. I thought part of what it means to be progressive is to encourage a diversity of thought and to respect that. And I've been very consistent and open about my position. That doesn't mean that I'm somehow against Tulsi Gabbard. It just means that I don't agree with everything she said. I agree with the ultimate view of hers, which is we shouldn't intervene in Syria. And I actually was co-sponsored a bill. I'm one of only 10 members of Congress about not giving terrorist aid in the one bill she introduced with Rand Paul.
I see your point. I mean, I get that. I mean, if you can disagree with Nancy Pelosi on single payer, you can disagree with Tulsi Gabbard meeting with Assad. And I don't think if you don't have a problem with the first, you shouldn't have a problem with the second.